President Cyril Ramaphosa will later today deliver a keynote address at the national commemoration of the National Day of Reconciliation. And this year's commemoration takes place at the Ncome Museum in Nquthu in the local municipality in KwaZulu-Natal. Previously known as Dingane's Day, the South African holiday was officially renamed Reconciliation Day in 1995, representing unity and nation building. And to talk to us more about the historical significance of Reconciliation Day, we joined virtually now by Professor Musa Xulu, a cultural expert and founder of Indonsa, Yesizwe. Thanks so much for your time, Prof. Good to see you again, and happy Reconciliation Day to you.
Happy Reconciliation to you, Sakina, and fellow South Africans. It's a great day, really, and it's got a very rich history.
Indeed it does, Prof. And as we see this year's official government commemoration of Day of Reconciliation is being held at the Ncome Museum that's located on the site of the Battle of Blood River, that heritage site in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's just start there by looking at the historical significance of the site for this year's commemoration.
Well, it all started in February 1838 when Peter Retief visited King Dingane in the Zulu kingdom at the Valley of Emakhosini. Basically, asked for land, but then King Dingane said, before we can talk about land, can you go and recapture my cattle, which were taken by King Sikonyela of the Basotho. And it was, of course, there were about 40 of them went to fetch the cattle, and they came back. And when they came back with the cattle, because King Sikonyela was very much feared, King Dingane became very worried that how were they able to retrieve the cattle. And so a decision was taken that they should be killed. And so they were killed in February 1838. And then it was, of course, decided that, no, they must come back and fight with the Zulus. And on the 16th of December, 1838, some 460 of them camped on the western side of the Ncome Blood River using the Volkswagen. And then, of course, on that morning, around about 4 a.m., there was a big fight between the Zulus and the Boers. But before the fight took place, the Boers had taken a vow, some kind of covenant with God, to say that if it lets them to defeat the Zulus, they will bow in front of him, they will worship him for the rest of their lives and future generations. And of course they won. And then in 1910, the day was known as the Day of the Vow, remembering that 1838 episode. And then later in 1980 it became Dingane's Day. And then, of course, it changed again to Day of the Vow. And in 1995, it became Day of Reconciliation. Now, it was important for it to become Day of Reconciliation because 1838, the Battle of Blood River formed the cornerstone of Afrikanersdom in South Africa. The entirety of the apartheid system was designed around Ncome Blood River. And then, of course, you must remember that the apartheid state was a religious state. So based on that Day of the Vow with God in 1838, it continued until 1995. And then, of course, things changed when the new government came and said, no, we're building a new country now after 342 years of oppression, and we have to learn to reconcile and live together as different people, color, or creed, and ethnic groups, and so on.
And, you know, from that history that you just gave us, Professor Xulu, we look at this day that was known as Dingane's Day. It was known as the Day of the Vow. And now in this new dispensation, it is a day of reconciliation, bringing together that divisive past that used to separate us, where people were commemorating this day separately. And when you look at the reconciliation project in South Africa, we still seem much divided along racial lines when it comes to commemorations of our public holidays, and this one included?
Well, that's unfortunate, but Sakina, it's very difficult to build a nation after 342 years of forced separation that was practiced by colonialism, the Union, as well as the apartheid system. Of course, what you see now, even today, black people will be on the eastern side, which was opened in 1998 when President Mandela was still president, and he was very passionate, as well as President Mbeki, were very passionate about this project to succeed. And fortunately, I was directly involved at that time. You'll find that on that day in 1998, PW Botha and the Afrikaners, they came over to the eastern side, to the new monument, but it has drifted again. They tend to hold their own commemoration on the western side by the Lagas, and the Africans tend to hold this day on the eastern side in the new monument, which was opened in 1998. It's very unfortunate, but it's not only this holiday. You will find that even if it's Human Rights Day, which is coming, you'll find that the people who really attend on a very serious note are Africans in this country. It means that we still have to sit down and talk about the reconciliation project. What went wrong? Your ancestors did this and this and that. We are still suffering from that. Can we come together? But you'll find that in white suburbs, for example, former white suburbs or white schools, the children are really interacting quite well. But as you know, there's a drop in the ocean. And in future, it is hoped, and I think it will take many, many more years to build South Africa as one nation. We tried in 2010 with the World Cup, but also in 1995, Nelson Mandela, was very active with the Rugby World Cup. But we have tended to look at sports and arts and culture as instruments for reconciliation instead of maybe sitting down and engaging also as well.
And we just about out of time, Prof, but I quickly want to ask you about this because over the years, there have been voices that have criticized the renaming of this particular holiday into Reconciliation Day, saying that this is erasing the historical of events that happened on this day. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, for me, on one side, Dingane's Day was fine, and also Day of the Vow, the Afrikaners were fine with it, but those were divisive names of this day because it was also a religious holiday. And in the past, like in the 70s, in towns like Vryheid and so on this day, Afrikaners would literally go out and beat up black people. And so on. And so with Nelson Mandela, you would have expected that that should stop. And we need now a day where we can all start working together and building one nation. It was the previous names were very divisive and were built around the hatred, which was not good for our nation going forward.
And speaking of going forward, Prof, as a final question, how do we go about building this nation, about, committing to being a unified nation state, to healing? What should we do? Because 30 years into our country's democracy, we seem to have started and then stopped, and it seems to be a bit of a stop-start situation. So what do you believe can really set us on a path to social cohesion in South Africa?
Well, many nations around the world, Sakina, which have embarked on similar projects, firstly accept that it takes time, a couple of generations, but then they centralize around the schooling system. It is the schooling system which must become more integrated, and children must get used to living together. And then in the third or fourth generation, that's when we will begin to think lesser about different races and so on. 342 years of operation is not as it's multi-generational, and it has gone into the DNA of some people that, for example, blacks are inferior and others are not inferior. And so it will take some time. But if you look at even countries that, let's say America, USA, 1776, that's when they got themselves liberated. They've not yet been able to integrate across the racial lines more than 200 years later. So I'm saying that we as fellow South Africans must all put our hands on deck, that we are building one nation. And maybe one of our weaknesses really is this negativity that you find everywhere on social media and everywhere, as if nothing has happened. Between 1994 and today, South Africa has really changed. It's a very attractive country. And when tourists come here, they will tell you, when Africans leave their countries to come here, this is the USA of Africa in terms of development. So we must also be proud of our country, look at our education system, make sure that our children attend same schools, and then preach this gospel of not only reconciliation, but nation building, that we're becoming one unique nation around the globe, where various 11, 12 different groups are able to live together peacefully.
Well, Professor Xulu, thank you so much. Professor Musa Xulu is a cultural expert and also the founder of Indonsa, Yesizwe, and talking to us there about the historical significance of Reconciliation Day. And do feel free to let us know your views by going to our page on X at Morning Live SABC.